Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I have a set of cards to share with you. The first of the set of cards will be my wedding invitations, and the second is going to be a thank you card that I made based off the design of the wedding invitation. So for my invitations, I was only making a relatively small amount of them, about 20. And so I decided to use some Lawn Fawn stamps because they are one of my favorite companies, and we had an outdoor wedding, and so I thought that incorporating the hedgehogs would be fun, and they have the little set, like the couple of hedgehogs, they'll set together. And so I decided to make them the focus of the card, and I kept it very clean and simple. Our wedding colors were brown and teal, and so you'll see that incorporated onto the card. My future husband at the time helped me design the wedding invitation, actually, and you'll see later on that I'm going to be adding some gold embossing, which was his suggestion and idea. To start off, I stamped the hedgehogs in black licorice hybrid ink from My Favorite Things, and I stamped all of them at once, and I put both hedgehogs on the stamp block at the same time, so that way each of them would be the same amount of space between them, because I will be die cutting all of them, and I'll show you how I saved a little bit of time die cutting them later. As I went to color the hedgehogs, I wanted to make sure that there was some interesting detail in them, but I also knew that I would have to color them relatively quick, as I would be coloring 40 hedgehogs in all. And so I decided to use a mix of browns, and I started by laying over an overall base of E31, and I did not do any blending in the body of the hedgehog and left all of the interest of the coloring in the spiked part of the hedgehog. I used a variety of brown Copic markers. I believe they were E31 for the base, as I mentioned, E49, which is a really dark brown, E35, and E57. You can see some of them off to the side, so I might have had those mixed up, but just the key is to have some light browns, some medium browns, and some dark browns to create this layered spine effect. If you look at a picture of an actual hedgehog, their spines are quite a bit lighter, and that is accurate but a little bit difficult to portray with the markers. And so I would rather make it look interesting and fun than to be accurate, because it is supposed to be a cartoon. And to create the spines, I am just flicking the marker, and I'm looking at the direction of the spines in the stamp as a guide. So where the spines in the stamp are slanted, I will use the same slants as I draw my spines in. As I mentioned before, you can save a little bit of time die cutting by taping down your die cuts and then cutting off the die cut panel and just using that panel over and over again, so that way you don't have to position both dies each time. You just position the cardstock that the dies are taped to over the set of them, and it just saves a little bit of time. And when you're mass producing a rather involved card like this, it's definitely worth it. I am using ivory for the card base and for the card panel in this instance, and I chose to go with 110-pound cardstock from Michaels, and I believe it's the part of the Recollections brand, but it's important to use the nice thick stuff, because especially when you're sending a wedding invitation, you really want it to be great quality. After I die cut the hedgehogs, I use some foam tape so that they have a little bit of extra dimension, but the thin foam tape from Scotch, you can actually still mail it you can send out in the mail just fine. I didn't have any of these get caught in the machines or anything like that. And for the Mr. and Mrs. sentiment, that is from the Years of Cheer set from Newton's Nook. I'm actually combining a couple of companies to get all the elements of this card. And you see that throughout the process I kept my sort of demo next to me, so that that's the one that I kept experimenting on and playing around with to make sure that I really liked it before I went into mass production mode. My fiance at the time had the idea of creating a set of rings. And so we experimented with different ways, tried just stamping them, but ultimately decided that the best look was to have them gold embossed. And even though gold wasn't strictly one of our colors, just like the black that I used for the sentiment isn't, it was more just kind of a highlight, and it goes really well with the teal and the brown. And so I took this circle stamp from the My Style Stamps Coffee Lover stamp set, and I actually physically cut the stamp and cut the center out of it because it's a double layered circle, but I only wanted the single layer to create the effect of being rings. And I stamped it with Versamark ink, and then I applied some Ranger Queen's Gold embossing powder to it. This embossing powder is kind of staticky. It sticks all over, and so it was super important to make sure that the black ink was dried first and that I applied a generous amount of anti-static powder with an anti-static powder bag or the EK Success powder tool, because I didn't want the gold embossing sticking where it wasn't supposed to, but inevitably it did a little bit, and that's fine. Everyone absolutely loved the invitations anyway, and they were not as meticulous about that sort of thing as me. They didn't really mind that there was a little bit of gold sticking to the sentiment or something like that. And so I heat embossed it. I did notice that the 110 pound cardstock from Michaels warped a lot when I went to apply the heat gun, and so I tried to make sure that my heat gun was fully heated before I applied it to the paper, and that helped a little bit, but I was just mostly very generous with my adhesive on the back. And that ivory panel there is the Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die that you know that I like to use a lot. And then I used greetingisland.com to come up with a simple wedding invitation inside where I put all the details, and then I just printed that out on regular paper and taped it inside of the card. Once I had my invitations done, I thought that for my thank you cards, I'd want to incorporate the same thing because I knew that people would be wanting handmade thank you cards. But then my mom gave me a set of handmade thank you cards using these Lawn Fawn hedgehogs at my bridal shower. And they were amazing and gorgeous, and I loved them. And as some of you already know, my mom does craft regularly too. So I was able to use that for a majority of the thank you cards that I sent, but I actually did run out before I got to my cousins. And so I decided I would make them a custom card and featuring all of the same elements from my original card. And so I have those hedgehogs again. They were actually leftovers because I colored a few extra hedgehogs. And now I have the thanks die from Lawn Fawn, and I die cut it several times with the same cardstock that I used for my base. And I layered it up and glued it together with multimedia matte from Ranger. And I have a fine precision tip on top of my multimedia matte, which really helps in the case of trying to get those intricate die cuts glued together. And once I had that layered up, I decided I also wanted to incorporate the gold powder. And so I'm going to be stamping the Sending Hedgehogs sentiment from the same Lawn Fawn Hedgehogs set. And I will be embossing that with the gold. Again, the powder was a little fussy, so you have to be careful with it. Really make sure nothing's staticky. And heat it on both sides to counteract that warping a little bit. But as mentioned before, just add a lot of adhesive to the back, and you can get it to lay pretty flat. So once I had the Sending Hedgehogs gold embossed, I wanted to layer up the rest of the elements, and I decided to, again, add the little hearts just like from the original wedding invitation. And I actually had an extra one that I kept for my scrapbook sitting next to me so I could make sure that there were some key similarities that would be appreciated. And I'm using the multimedia matte from Ranger again to adhere on the now stacked thick die cut. I really like how it gives that effect of being dimensional and almost like chipboard when you layer on all of those sentiments together. Also, a tip to make that a little bit faster, because if you wanted to do multiple of these or just to save time in general, you can die cut through several pieces of thin cardstock at one time. So I was able to die cut 2 pieces of the thanks at one time. I went back to the same BG49 Copic marker to color in the hearts that I had used on the original invitation, and then I layered, I stuck down with foam tape the hedgehogs. And like I said, those I colored exactly the same way as I talked about at the beginning of the video. And at the end of the video, I will be sharing my cake, a picture of the cake from the wedding, and the cake toppers were the same Lawn Fawn hedgehogs, colored the same way. That's why part of the reason I made some extras to use as random decorations. And then on top of this thanks, I am covering it completely with glossy accents, again with that fine tip, so that it has some dimension and some like shine to it, essentially. And so that's it for both of the cards today, the invitation and the thank you card, and hopefully that gives you some ideas if you are looking to make a wedding card. I think that my invitation could actually be used as a well wishes card for a wedding. I'm going to leave you links to the products in the video description below and to my blog, because I'll be entering this in a challenge. But I also here at the end of the video wanted to share with you some pictures from the wedding of my cake, of me and my husband, and some of my family members, including the cousins who will have to be waiting for this thank you card. And so that's going to be it for my video today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafty videos, including another wedding idea video coming up, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.